So before we begin, I do want to mention that the footage in this video was captured through my FrameMeister as a way to hopefully provide some better footage. Now, if you could give some feedback down in the comments below if you're watching this video off your computer, if the footage does look better than the previous video, that would be great and helpful. Anywho, Ratchet Clank 2 Going Commando. This is the first game in the series I ever played. I remember seeing advertisements to this game when I was younger, and they really caught my interest. I just never got to play the game when it came out since we didn't have a PlayStation 2 at the time. But in high school, I got a new PS2, and it just so happened that I ended up picking up this game, and it was my introduction to the series. Back then, my first experience with the game was mostly positive until I hit a wall, and then kinda gave up and moved on to the first game. After all these years, do I still enjoy playing this game? Let's get a basic setup to the story here, shall we? Things begin about a year after the events of the first game, where we see our two heroes being interviewed for a show called Behind the Hero. Turns out, Ratchet and Clank don't have much going on anymore, as the love and praise they received for saving the galaxy was kinda short-lived. Now they're just bored. Which brings us to Mr. Fizzwidget, who, when watching their interview, decides that they are the perfect candidates he's looking for. Instantly teleporting the two to the Bogon Galaxy, Mr. Fizzwidget explains to Ratchet that he needs their help to save an experiment that was stolen, and he will give Ratchet some training to retrieve this experiment if he's up to the task. Looking for some adventure, Ratchet eagerly agrees, and from there the story begins. Now, for me, I found the story to be pretty engaging, as there are a couple of twists that occur, but never get confusing. The story is still simple, yet focused. Sure, you can see a few of the twists coming, and the ending is very heavily foreshadowed, but it still managed to keep my interest thanks to its adventurous tone and some really likable characters. Ratchet and Clank work well for me, as I like Ratchet's more adventurous-seeking personality that is complemented nicely with Clank's more serious character, who likes to make some cheesy little jokes from time to time. The supporting cast is great too, as each of the characters have something memorable about them. Mr. Fizzwidget has a weird way of talking and seems to be in his own little world. The thugs for less are somewhat serious criminals who try to take their business professionally, and the thief is a little intimidating but slightly incompetent. There are also a variety of NPCs you'll meet throughout your journey, like small little robots, some scientists looking to make money, an annoying hippie, and a turtle-looking guy with a hand puppet. So yeah, I had fun with the story, as it's easy to follow but still interesting, is full of humor and entertaining characters, and provides a fun adventure through this galaxy. I guess the best way to describe Going Commando is that it's a 3D platformer with some third-person gunplay. Kinda. Well, first off, progression works the same as before. You will travel to different planets that will have a couple of paths for you to follow in order to reach certain objectives that will help you get further in the game, like coordinates to a new planet or a new gadget. To provide some aid, you are given a well-detailed map that shows you where each objective is. And, once again, it's really useful and something you should use if you're getting lost. I found a lot of these levels to be very enjoyable, thanks to how well laid out they are, with each path being very different from each other and how some naturally loop back to your ship. Every level consists of 3 elements: some platforming, like jumping between monsters' backs and swinging to rotating platforms, some minor puzzles where you often need to use a gadget to help get past them, and areas filled with enemies for you to fight with your weapons. Some of these levels will have more emphasis on one of the 3 elements, but it's a respectable combination of the 3 that help make the levels much more entertaining and engaging than they otherwise would be. Plus, some sections of the game take advantage of your gadgets to create some fun and unique scenarios, like taking on enemies along the wall of a room. Not only that, but there are even some environmental objects to interact with on certain planets that help make them stand out more, like slot machines on one and rockets on another. Once again, Ratchet has the basic kind of actions you would expect, like double jumping, using his Ratchet for melee combat, a variety of weapons along with having better strafing now, and wall jumping. With Clank on his back and some gadgets, Ratchet's movement gets expanded, like Clank can give him a long jump, and the charge boots give Ratchet a quick boost forward. What's new are these minor RPG-like elements. The more enemies you kill with a weapon, the more experience it will gain, and eventually will level up. Upon level up, these weapons will change form, get more powerful, and gain more ammo. It's this small addition that helps make weapons much more fun, as not only do they add to the variety of weapons, but it's also nice to experiment with them, as I wanted to use all these weapons just to see how they upgraded. There's some fun weapons too, like the Spider Bot, Blitz Cannon, and the Bouncer. Ratchet will also gain experience by killing enemies, and upon level up, will gain an extra notch in his health. And there's a large screen nuke-like action that occurs, which certainly made leveling up feel so much more satisfying to me. You can get new weapons at vendors, as well as restock your ammo, which at least is a little less tedious now, since you just have to find the weapon and they fully restock it at the vendor. You'll get bolts for buying weapons by killing enemies and breaking crates. Just keep in mind that some important items will get expensive, so never spend all your bolts at the vendor. There are also armor vendors that will give Ratchet a new outfit to take better hits, which can be very helpful, so I tend to grind bolts for these. There are also moments where you get to play as Clank, and once again, Clank focuses more on getting past obstacles through the use of these little robot minions. The difference this time is now you have some new robot pals who have specific jobs like making a bridge or smashing things with a hammer. These moments are usually short, and I found them to be a nice little change of pace the few times they showed up. The other main gameplay would be ship missions. About 3 times throughout the game, there are moments where you'll be flying your ship around to complete a mission. I found these to be somewhat enjoyable. Your ship moves well, you can dodge roll, shoot lock on rockets, give yourself a boost, and you only need to do the first mission of each level to progress the game, which aren't that hard or long. In these missions, you can earn an item called Raritanium, which is used to upgrade your ship, like giving it extra shield or more firepower. I recommend getting Raritanium by replaying the first mission so you can upgrade your ship to be better, as this makes the later few times you have to do flight missions quite trivial. If you want to, there are optional missions in these flight levels, like defeating enemies within a time limit or flying through rings, and hey, you get some more bolts by doing them. 2 planets in this game are these very open areas where you can collect special crystals to get more bolts. I find it kinda fun since there are some cool monsters that will show up at times, but personally I prefer the linear levels more since they're much better structured. Very few times throughout the game you will get to use this hover pack and a glider. The hover pack is okay for reaching far areas, but it is used in interesting locations later on, like in a traffic tunnel, giving you some challenge. As for the glider, well, it's used in cool areas to create some neat obstacles to get past, but I didn't quite get how sensitive the turning can be, and this is where I often would mess up in the later ice level. But I do like the concept though. There are also a few moments where you will be on these small planets, like when you're on Big Clank and we needed to break some satellites. I found these to be neat and actually kinda fun, with the only exception being the optional moon one. Lastly, there are a few planets with some extra stuff to do on them, like the 2 battle arenas. Battle arenas will have challenges for you to complete, like boss fights, defeating waves of enemies, and taking on enemies with certain stipulations. I really enjoy these as they are a good way to get bolts and to upgrade your weapons. Plus, some of these challenges are just plain fun. There are a couple planets with some racing sections that have their own challenges. Typically, I hate racing sections in 3D platformers, but this I found to be okay because the tracks are decently laid out and don't have sharp turns, which is good since the hover bike don't turn too well. Plus, only 1 mission is required. The rest are optional, even a whole other track on another planet. Because there is so much to do in this game, it's quite a lengthy journey and does does have some challenging moments, but I never found it to be too difficult. There are some fun extras and secrets, like skill points return. There are hidden areas that often have platinum bolts that can be used to give your weapons enhancements. And there's a new game plus mode, where your weapons and bolts carry on over and can upgrade even higher, plus enemies are now stronger. Oh, and if you go to a certain level under specific conditions, you can access the Insomniac Museum to see things that didn't make it in the game and what ideas the developers had. It's an awesome secret to go for. Once again, I really like the cartoony art style to the game. First off, this is complemented with some great animations, as all the models have smooth, fluid movement that makes everything feel so alive, whether it be in gameplay or in cutscenes. Personally, I like a lot of the character designs, as they can be simple but charming for me. Levels look really good with some well thought out detail. For example, city locations will have lots of flying vehicles in the background, and some more natural locations will have wildlife off in the distance. I would also like to say that there are just some really cool levels in this game, like Uzula having a rundown megacorp outlet that has become overrun by vegetation of the surrounding swamp, Barlow having an abandoned Gadgetron factory in the desert, the late night city of Notak, and the floating city over the vast sea on Damsel. And to help bring characters to life, we have some talented voice acting that helps make all these characters feel natural, such as James Arnold Taylor as Ratchet and David Kay as Clank, Jim Ward as Fizzwidget, and Steve Bloom as the Thugs for Less boss. And of course, once again, we have this cool sci-fi sounding music that really fits the game, providing nice atmosphere at times and others amping up the adventure. There are even moments when the music changes on a planet to fit certain locations, which is a nice touch. I would recommend listening to Todano, Surfing Electric Cable's Buldan, and the Canal City Notak theme. In the end, I still really enjoy this game. Sure, some of the minigames are a little annoying, not all the weapons are that great, and I wish there was a bigger focus on platforming. But all that aside, the game has a great story that kept my interest, lovable characters, some really neat weapons, well laid out levels, small but fun RPG-like elements, and provides a long and somewhat challenging adventure. Personally, I love this game, and would highly recommend it to people who enjoy platformers and want to try something a bit different. For me, this isn't just one of my favorite games in the series, but also for the whole system. I definitely would say Going Commando is a great improvement from the first game. Next time, we'll be taking a look at the third tile, so see y'all then.